Finland's parliament has granted border guards the power to turn back migrants coming from Russia. The country's ruling right-wing coalition and many opposition lawmakers backed this decision. The government says the move is meant to deter Russia from weaponizing migrants. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now by Martti Koskiniemi, professor of international law at the University of Helsinki. Professor, it's good to have you with us. I understand you were one of those 18 experts who advised that this law would clash with Finland's constitution. So what is your biggest concern about the legislation?
Well, there are a number of concerns. As it was stated already, the government itself acknowledges that the legislation goes against international human rights instruments. It goes against European law. And in some ways, most concerned, it also breaches the Finnish constitution.
So what would be your approach then? What would you advise the government to do to tackle the migration issue?
Well, there are a couple of ways within the European Union that one could press this. One of them would be to use the treaties to persuade the Commission to propose to the Council that special measures be taken. The Treaty on the Operations of the European Union allows this kind of a process where a tailored decision would be made for a member state that feels pressure from a massive influx of migrants on its borders.
This reminds me of what Poland did at its border with Belarus at the start of the invasion of Ukraine. But Finland, what's different here is Finland is putting this practice into law. Do you expect other countries to introduce similar legislation?
Well, Finland has always been known as a country favoring human rights and international cooperation. We have prided ourselves of being for a rule-based international order. If we start breaching this law, it becomes very easy for others to do that as well. But I'm more concerned of the presidential value of this in the Finnish internal politics. When we start breaching our own constitution, breaching the fundamental rights of migrants, foreigners, and Finns, it's who knows where the ball will be going. It's a snowball effect. It becomes so much easier next time also to make exceptions to these very fundamental regulations.
Professor Martti Koskiniemi, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's get more details on this from our correspondent Terry Schultz, who filed that report and joins us from Brussels. Terry, the Finnish parliament has now approved this rather controversial law. What does that mean for Finland's policy on its border with Russia?
That's right. It just passed by a 5-6 majority, 167 to 31. So if two more lawmakers had gone against the law, it would not have passed. That shows you just how divisive it was. Now, what the proponents of the law say is that they could now open the border crossings, which have been closed since late last year, because now they would have the tools they need to send back these people that they believe are being sent by Moscow. And so there may be some very real and near-term results from the law in that there could be some transport across the border again. Now, there won't be a big change in that because of sanctions against Russia for its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Tourists aren't allowed to come and Russian cars aren't allowed to come through. But there would be some normal everyday transport, and people with relatives, dual citizens with relatives on either side of the border could travel more easily. So that was a big point that the government used in saying that it wanted to get back to some sort of normal situation on the border, using this ability of border guards to turn back what they say are instrumentalized migrants.
Well, how does the Finnish government now justify going against both the advice of their legal experts and several human rights organizations?
This is a kind of awkward situation for the Finnish government because it's known as a very law-abiding country. And, for example, the United Nations said, Finland, you can't do this. 18 legal experts the parliament called in to advise them all said you can't do this. It goes even against Finland's own constitution, in addition to EU law and to international obligations. So the Finnish government says, look, we're only going to do this for 1 year. We're going to call it a national security incentive to do this. And, we're going to hope that this shows Russia that they can't push us around this way. But it does basically on its face break the EU ban on pushing back migrants, especially without allowing them to apply for asylum. So, yeah, it's a difficult situation, and I would expect that there are going to be some legal challenges to this.
Will there be wider EU implications, you think?
That's certainly what human rights advocates believe. Those countries that already would have liked to have a stricter regulation on their border, or countries where Russia has definitely tried to do this already, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, they may well look at this Finnish law and say, how could we get a law like this through our parliament, declaring that there's a national security incentive for it. So I think that the experts that I spoke with very much think that this is going to be a precedent for other countries. Again, it can only stay in place for 1 year at the moment as an exceptional measure, but certainly those countries who, A, may have been looking to keep out more migrants, but B, feel that Russia is trying to manipulate them this way, are expected to follow suit.
Our correspondent Terry Schultz there reporting from Brussels. Thank you, Terry.